Welcome to Sabbath Collective, a community of people interested in celebrating the Sabbath and pursuing God through a Hebraic contextual context of Scripture. So we're going to begin our time together with the lighting of the Chavos candles, which represent peace, love, unity, joy, rest. Traditionally, the mother of the home lights them, and then she encircles the candles 3 times with her hands, which is a gesture of welcoming in the Sabbath. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, who gives us hope through this story, who inhabits the world, who cares about us, who moves through us and in us and for us. Amen. Well, we are going to be talking about Purim tonight. Purim celebrates the story found in the Megillah, which is the Hebrew word for scroll, the Megillah Esther. So I want to first start by looking at the meaning of her names, which are really cool. Hey, Rai, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom from Taiwan. Hey, Rebecca, great to see you from New York. Good to have you with us. Hey, Mike Bartel, Shabbat Shalom to you. Good to see you tonight. Catherine, great to have you with us. Shabbat Shalom. Hope everyone's doing good. Hope everyone's staying warm. Hey, Randall, good to see you. Happy Purim. Shabbat Shalom. So nice to see everybody. So the name Esther. So let's look at some of the meanings of her name. In Persian, Esther means star, which is an important symbol at this time for them especially. The star was, as far as their culture goes, something that led them and something that really influenced them. So star really meant leading or influence. The root of the Hebrew word Esther is seter, which means conceal or hidden. And one tradition of Jewish people for Purim is that they wear masks for this holiday. So she is both a shining influencer and someone hidden or concealed. Now, in a Western Greek mindset of either or, right? How Western Greek people think, it would look like 2 contrasting identities. How can you be both? How can you shine and have influence and yet be concealed or hidden? But not in the Hebraic worldview of both ends. And Esther is both of these things. She also had an additional name, Hadassah, which means myrtle. Now, it's one of the 4 species used in the Sukkot festival for worship. And you remember, as we've done Sukkot over the years, with the 4 species that were kind of bound together and we would wave them. Well, each species represented a way to serve the Lord, and myrtle has a symbolic meaning to see. So her name suggests she will see, she will influence, yet in some way be hidden. And interestingly enough, there's another unusual thing with names in this book of Esther. Have you noticed what name is missing? Now, for those of you who we've been walking through this for a couple of years, you'll know whose name this is. But this book in Scripture never once mentions the name of the Lord. So what could that suggest to people? Alexandra, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. We've had Purim the whole year wearing masks. Indeed we have. I know, that's so funny. Hey, Beth, good to see you. Hope you're doing well in Colorado. Aaron, Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you. Great to have you with us. So, again, as many rabbis and sages use this expression, hidden in plain sight. So that's sort of a theme for this book, hidden in plain sight. The celebration is called Purim, which is Aramaic for a Hebrew word, goral, which actually means lots, like the kind that you cast, to cast lots, which could be anything from sticks to jewels that people would throw to decide what to do. Sort of like if you've ever done this, we'll flip a coin, heads we go uptown, tails we go downtown, you know. This is what it is, to cast lots. And that's the meaning of the word Purim. Haman, a prominent person in this story, cast lots in order to determine the day in which the Jewish people would all be killed, which is crazy to think about, that if someone would just do a flip of something and make that decision. But that's who Haman was. The name of the holiday, Purim, means chance. It means serendipity. It means fate. So just to let you see these names here, chance, serendipity, and fate, all of those meanings are connected with Purim, which is the casting of lots, which is really an interesting name for a Hebrew holiday. Yahweh's name is not seen, but yet we'll see these sort of saving miracles all throughout the story. Chance or providence? We'll talk about that a lot. And when I use the word providence, what I'm referring to is the protective care of God. So chance or providence, we'll be talking through this story. We see a story of salvation without Adonai's name, work through a young woman that was, as sages say, hidden in plain sight. Now, one of my favorite quotes really is this one, and it says, "Until the story of the hunt is told by the lion, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And that's by Chinua Achebe. That is so powerful and so true, and we see that today in so many ways, obviously. And walking through this story, we're going to look at it through the lens of the lion, the one hunted, which was Esther and all of her people. And Haman, the hunter, has this desire to annihilate the Jewish people. But the hidden Esther would see, and she would act, and she would shine. Now, in these times that we're in, I've heard a lot of people say this. I think that maybe there is a God, but I don't think he gives a damn. And they really mean that. They don't think he really cares about what's going on, and he seems absent. He seems hidden. We don't see him anywhere. We don't see him doing anything, which is really why this story tonight is going to be so hopeful to all of us. Because I think we all feel that a little bit, like, hello, God, where are you and where have you been? And this will all give us some encouragement. Jim says, absence of the Lord's name makes this a great book to turn to when feeling potentially abandoned by God. Right, Jim? Yeah, you just co-signed my point. Ryan says, because the name of God isn't mentioned, it makes it even crazier that the ancient texts survive. If the text mentioned God, it means it must be buried and never destroyed. Yeah, good point, Ryan. Really good point. Yep. Angie, good to see you. Great to have you with us. Beth says, I'm very tender today. This is already making me cry. Oh, beautiful then. It's perfect that you're with us tonight then. John Rosa, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Great to have you with us. So hopefully you've read the book of Esther before. I posted in the membership group if you had time to read it this week. If not, you'll still be able to track with me, but I'm only going to talk about part of the story, and I'm going to paint it with very broad strokes, okay? So let me just give you some history real quick. Esther lived in ancient Persia about 100 years after the Babylonian captivity of the Jewish people. When Esther's parents died, she was orphaned, then adopted and raised by her older cousin Mordecai, who loved her and nurtured her. It is the year 400 BCE or thereabouts. Now, for centuries, the Babylonians had been the preeminent world power, but then the Persians swept in like a flood and defeated them. The Persians became the largest empire the world had ever seen. And Ahasuerus, or another name for him is Ahasuerus, is the sovereign over a vast 127 provinces. This is approximately 3 million square miles. This is huge. His name means Venerable Father. This is his title. So many scholars think he's better known in history as Xerxes. When we study history, Xerxes is this person, Ahasuerus. I'm not going to get into the former queen in the book of Esther, but she was banished from the kingdom through no fault of her own. And after some time had passed, the king and his aides figure, maybe it's time to get a new queen, a new Mother Persia, if you will. And so, to find his new queen, he hosts something like a royal contest. Now, I hear male pastors teaching about this a lot, and they sort of talk about that this is a beauty pageant where the girls got spa treatments and how nice that would be for Esther. This mansplaining is not telling of the hunt from the lion's perspective, the quote we just used, right? Let's look at it through the lion's perspective, through the hunted. Esther, along with other young women, were taken from their homes and their communities and put into the king's harem. They were isolated away in the palace. This is not a spa vacation. Women had no say in the matter. Now, having said that, it's better to be the queen than simply part of the harem. So Esther saw, again, you're going to see me do this. I know it's kind of weird, but I want these words to pop out at you, right? The meaning of Esther's name and the meaning connected with Purim, chance, and whether we're looking at chance or whether we're looking at providence, right? So Esther saw how to navigate this. She had an advisor that by chance connected to her to give her advice. And she listened to the opinion of those who knew what the king would like. So she didn't do the normal heavy makeup. They used a lot of really beautiful colors on their faces at this time. But she didn't do that normal makeup that the other women were using to make themselves stand out. Instead, she went very simple and she radiated like the stars in her natural beauty. And that was very attractive to the king. So after a process, Esther was ultimately chosen for the throne, and she becomes queen. Hey, Neats, good to see you, honey. Shabbat shalom. So here's another bit of concealment or hidden. Esther was a Jew. Her cousin Mordecai told her, don't tell anyone. And here Esther was, a Jewish young lady, hidden in plain sight. And she becomes queen without ever revealing her identity. Now, chance? Fate? So, isn't the book of Esther, but isn't Yahweh's name, isn't in the book of Esther, but his providential care comes through people who are hidden in plain sight. His providential care comes through people who are hidden in plain sight. And I just so feel like we all really need to connect to that in this time. So here's Mordecai, her cousin that raised her. And he sits at the king's gate, which is this huge big entrance to the royal palace. And from there, he had permission to be there. He had a responsibility there. And from there, he got to communicate with and support Esther, who was on the inside. And on one of those occasions when he was outside of the gate, two of the king's officers become really angry and conspire with each other to assassinate the king. So Mordecai hears about it and tells Esther, the queen, and Esther reports it to the king, crediting Mordecai with the intel. And the matter was investigated and dealt with, and the assassination attempt was squashed, and all of this was recorded in the daily journal that was kept with the king. So all the records were kept in books, and they were kept with the king. Now, this bit right here is key in the story. And again, we want to ask ourselves, is this chance, just a flow of the dice, Or is this providence? God is working. It is his narrative of providential care. But still, here's the important thing, there will need to be choices made by the people involved, which may be why his name is not seen in the book. It is the story of human responsibility to see and to act and the power in those choices. Let me see why. Right, reminds me of Hunger Games. Totally. She played the game just enough to survive, but went on her own terms. Yep, absolutely. It's a major epic story. So there was an arrogant and authoritarian leader named Haman. Yes, this story is as old as time and just keeps on going, right? He was very powerful and he had the king's ear. So the king promotes him and he gets a law passed where people had to bow to him, right? Because again, he's arrogant. He loves the accolades. He loves the attention. He loves the power. Haman was a descendant of Agag, who was the king of the Amalekites, the people who were Israel's sworn enemy for generations. So you got to know here, there's history, right? And it's about to play a part. So Esther 3, 5 through 9. If you have your devices and want to look at this with me, you can. If not, you can just listen. Haman was furious when he saw that Mordecai was not kneeling and bowing down to him. So again, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, at the front gate, Haman passes by, wants everybody to bow, and he doesn't bow. Now, a lot of Western people say, oh, that's because it was against Judaism to bow. Not true. Not true. It was not against Judaism to bow. He did not bow. We don't know why. But he did not bow because he did not want to bow. Okay, so the text goes on. However, on learning what people Mordecai belonged to, the Jewish people, it seemed to him a waste to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Rather, he decided to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom. In the first month, the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of Achashverosh, they began throwing pur. Again, that is, they cast lots before Haman every day and every month until the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman said to Achashverosh, the king, there is a particular people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people. Moreover, they don't observe the king's laws. It doesn't befit the king to tolerate them. If it please the king, have a decree written for their destruction, and I will hand over 330 tons of silver to the officials in charge of the king's affairs to deposit in the royal treasury. Please don't miss this. Again, this never changes. What Haman just did was give a butt ton of money to the king to be able to eradicate a group of people. Lust for power, money, and racism go hand in hand, don't they? And they always have. Again, nothing new under the sun. So, a law is made. Jim said, I never knew that about Haman's ancestry. Yep, isn't that interesting, right? Adds a whole new layer to his bow law. Yep, bow law, I'm sorry. Yep, absolutely. Always these things behind the scene, right? Power, lust for power, money, and racism go hand in hand. Always have, always will. So, a law is made, and when the king made these laws, these particular kinds of laws, they were irrevocable. And this was a law to kill all of the Jewish people. And it was irrevocable, means nothing could change it. So the Jewish people are in mourning. And Esther hears about her uncle who's at the gate in sackcloth and ashes, and she doesn't know why. And he explains to her aide that she needs to approach the king and intervene or they're all going to be dead. And she sends word back to Mordecai and says, I can't go in to see the king because he hasn't sent for me for a while. And if I go in without being summoned, I may be killed. And then we read in Esther 4:13 through 14. And this is just one of these verses that we all know, we all love. It's one of the most powerful verses really in the Bible. It says, upon being told what Esther had said, Mordecai asked him to give Esther this answer. Don't suppose that merely because you happen to be in the royal palace, you will escape any more than the other Jews. In other words, Esther is a Jewish woman too. For if you fail to speak up now, and that phrase, speak up now, in Hebrew is karash, and it means to be silent and to be deaf. So what it means is you don't listen and you don't speak up. That's a really cool word. Relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from a different direction, but you and your father's family will perish. Who knows whether you didn't come into your royal position precisely for such a time as this. And again, we've all heard this verse quoted so many times, for such a time as this. So is this chance or providence that she's looking at right now? Mordecai is saying, if you don't listen and you keep silent, you are on Haman's side. You are denying your responsibility and your position that God has placed you in. So Esther, she feels that. And she tells everyone to fast and pray for her for 3 days. And then she decides to have a banquet. Aaron says, there's God, right? Yep, there he is. Thank you. She decides to have a banquet. And she invites the king and Haman. And it goes well. And at the same time, here's what else is going on by chance. The king can't sleep. And he does what a lot of us do when we can't sleep. We decide to read, right? That'll knock us out. So he reads the history book, okay? The one that Mordecai is written about. And he says, dang, I never did anything for this guy. He saved my life. He exposed this conspiracy and I never did anything for him. And so when the next day he asks Haman, hey, I want to honor somebody. What should I do for someone that I really want to honor? So Haman thinks he's talking about himself. And he starts talking about all this stuff. Let's have a parade with the horse and let's parade him around. And the king said, that's an awesome idea. Great idea. By the way, do this for Mordecai. So Haman, the one that just got the decree to murder Mordecai and all this people, has to do this thing that he thought he was getting for Mordecai. A huge reversal, which is another prominent theme in the book of Esther, reversal. So Esther now has another banquet. Aaron, let's see. Rebecca Garcia just had a post to the contrary about reading. Oh, that's funny. She reads and she doesn't go to sleep. Okay, I think I'm probably more like that too, actually. So Esther has another banquet, and she now exposes the scheme. So Haman is there, King Ahasuerus is there, and she exposes this scheme. And Esther knew that Haman craved power, and she knew that the king was paranoid, right? The king owned things. He owned what he presided over. He owned his queen, right? She knew these things. So she orchestrates these events, and the king hears of what has happened and realizes who's going to get killed. And he gets so angry because he knows this can't be overturned that he storms out of the room. And when he does that, it leaves Haman and Esther alone. And now Haman knows he's in deep. And what he does here is he throws himself onto the couch where the bed, kind of the lounger that Esther is on. And now he's the one who's kneeling to Esther, a Jew. Here's another reversal. Rebecca. Yeah, that's true. Rebecca is a librarian, and so she loves her some books. So let's look at Esther 7 and 8. Haman had just fallen on the couch where Esther was. When the king returned from the palace garden to the wine banquet, he shouted, look at this, is he even going to rape the queen here in the palace before my very eyes? This is good stuff. So Haman happens to throw himself on the couch, and the king, by chance, happens to walk in. And the king perceived Haman was a threat to his queen, which he was. He was a threat. And this literally exposes the face of evil in plain sight. Now, Haman wasn't going to rape Esther. Haman was going to kill Esther, right? Because she was a Jew. But again, this wisdom and this providence comes in, and Esther is able to see as her name, and she finds a way, and she's going to play on the king's paranoia and sense of ownership with her, and she's just orchestrates the whole thing. And the king makes a reversal. And the king has Haman killed on the very gallows that Haman had made for Mordecai. Again, big reversal. And then all of Haman's possessions go to Esther personally. Again, another huge reversal. But Esther can't stop here. Her people are still going to be murdered. That was still a law. And so she has to somehow save the people, again, of which she is a part. So the enemy is dead, but legally the law can't be changed. The killing of the Jewish people is still going to happen. So she has to go back to the king again and ask for an intervention. And the king says to Esther, I can't overturn it. Figure something out, and I'll back it. And she does, along with Mordecai. And they wrote a letter to the Jews and the governors and the officials and all the 127 provinces from what's now India to Ethiopia in the name of the king. And Esther chapter 7, verse 11 said the letter said that the king had granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and organize themselves to take out anyone who attacked them, and then to take the attacker's property. So now the Persians are rethinking law number 1, because law number 2 was no good for them, right? So the Jewish people here prevails. And again, is this chance? I think not. Jim says, go figure. The man says to the woman, I can't correct this, so you have to figure out the solution. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Illy, great to see you, honey. Good to have you with us. Hope you're doing well, and the family, too. So let's look at a really cool verse here. Again, speaking of reversal. For Mordecai, Esther 9:3, for Mordecai the Jew was second only to King Ahasuerus. He was a great man among the Jews. So look, Mordecai is now number 2. He's a great man among the Jews, popular with all his many countrymen. He sought the good of his people and interceded for the welfare of all of their descendants. So this is that this person who was corrupt, who was power hungry, who was greedy, who was murderous, not only gets taken out of the picture, but Mordecai gets put into the picture. And he becomes a blessing not only to the Jewish people, but to all the people, because he's a man of integrity. He's a man who cares. So we see here, good to have, Illy, is your family doing good? Give us a thumbs up if all is well. We haven't seen you or heard from you for a while, but it's great to have you with us tonight. We love you. So again, legal reversal, financial reversal, authority reversal, threat reversal, and a motivation reversal of who's in leadership, what their motivation really is. Mordecai and Esther were servants of the people, and all that was meant for evil was reversed. The unseen, hidden in plain sight, was at work in the plan of reversal. And again, is that chance or is that providence? Esther is the story of providential care from the one that is always there working through those hidden and willing ones to reverse the plans of evil. And isn't it just a really important time where we're at today to connect with that and to really try to be intentional, not just to kind of grind through life, but to see the unseen, to take notice of the hidden, what is concealed, and to know and to trust that it is not just chance, that it is providential care. But it's providential care that works together with humanity. And so we have got to see, and we have got to act, we have got to speak. And in partnership, we can be part of his providential care on this earth. Hey, sissy, love. So, I love you all. Be encouraged in this. I know I am. It's a really good time. Shabbat shalom, and I will see you next week.